Okie dokie. So I made some good progress last class on adding a lot of different three-dimensional textures. The last thing I did was add this kind of mesh on top here, which I think added a lot of dimension, and it added some glitters, a little bit of bling on there. And then I cut into it and I pulled the elements out that I wanted to be kind of on the other side. I pulled all these little loops through and I pulled these tassels through. And then I kind of went in and I cut up some paper. These are little orange half circles, and I glued them down on top of this mesh to kind of highlight and accentuate the emphasis of the center here. So little things like that will, I think, add a lot of detail. And then I added this green ribbon here and these knotted things and these little bow ties, and I'm just having a lot of fun with this. And one of the reasons why I added this on top was that I thought it would be a really good surface to sew through and kind of lock things in and tie things up. So I made this little blue tape needle, very simple. It will, if you have needles at home, ask your family if they have any needles. There's a lot of different kinds. There's the small metal ones for embroidery, and there's also like bigger plastic ones for lots of different craft projects. So you might already have one at home. You don't have to do this. But I wanted to show you how to make it just in case. So the first thing I did, I have a piece of printer paper here, whatever kind of paper you can find, as long as it's not too stiff. And I just cut out a little rectangle here, about 1 inch by maybe 2 inches. And then I'm just going to roll it. You don't need blue tape. You can use any kind of tape you have. Just kind of roll it into a little shape here. If you can find something else that you could use instead of this rolled piece of paper, like if I had a bunch of this stuff, I could just cut off one of these strips. This is going to be the actual eye of the needle part, the opening of the needle. And then just kind of bend it around. And then take blue tape is really handy and useful. I always have a ton of it at home and at school. I use it for everything. And I'm just going to cover it so it stays together. If you can come up with a better way to make this needle, go for it. Maybe you have sort of an engineer's mind. And then I just kind of squish it all together and then bend it around my thumb like that so it's curved. And then I cut out this little triangular shape. And then I'm going to roll that as well. This is going to be the needle part. Grab some more blue tape. Fold this over. Make sure this is long enough so that you can connect the end and attach this part. Tape it down. And then I just like to run the tape down the whole thing so that it's all sort of stays together. I think I ended up chopping it down even like to more of a fine point. It really depends on, if your mesh has holes in it that are big enough to thread this needle through, right? If your mesh is really tiny, then this needle isn't really going to work for you because it's pretty big. And then I kind of contoured it a little bit by cutting it into a nice sharp point. And then you take your yarn or whatever you're using. You can even stick a tool in there and kind of make it a little bigger. It's pretty strong and sturdy now that it's got tape on it. And then you just thread your needle. And this is called the tail, and that just kind of hangs there. And then it really depends at this point what you are threading it through. So I'm going to try to thread it through this. Now I'm going to think about, well, what's the goal here? Maybe I'm looping around what's here already. That might be kind of neat. So then I go underneath this, And then I pull it through, and I'm gonna, of course, I'm gonna have to tie it off at the start so that I can continue. Because if I tied a knot just in the end of that, it's gonna pull right through. I don't actually have yarn that's different color than this pink, so if I did, I would probably use it to get a different color in there. And this is just so basic, you guys. This is like basic. We're not going to really get into any type of sewing lesson or anything like that. So now I'm just going to sort of whip it around. If you've learned anything about sewing, you know there's a lot of different types of stitches.
Miss Renninger,
Yeah.
do we have to sew?
I do want you to get some type of detail in there, and you can do it in any way you want. Like you mentioned that you want to embroider.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that would count. That would count as your detail.
Can we make like hoops of like pipe cleaners and stick it on? Would that be detail?
Sure, yeah. Detail is really anything that adds, a detail, or like you can tell it took time to craft that or to sew it, or, I would even consider maybe these loops detail. Okay, but I do want you in some way to try some type of stitching or sewing or threading or weaving through your piece, not just gluing it down, but like actually sewing it together somehow. Okay, so that's really up to you. And if you need me to give you advice on your specific piece, depending on what your piece looks like and the materials that you have on hand, then post it in today's feedback, and I'm happy to kind of give you some ideas as to how to go about doing that. And then when I get to the end here, I'm probably going to have to either glue it down or just tie it off. Okay, and then just cut it, and then I might want to just tack it down a little bit with some glue so it doesn't come unthreaded. Okay, so that's just, an option. If you have your own needles and if you wanted to embroider something separate and then glue it down, you could do that. If you wanted to just use your fingers and like loop things around and glue them down, you could do that. I would consider little bows or little loops to be detail. Anything that takes, some intricate work, I would consider detail. And as I continue to work on this, like you might be saying, well, how do I know it's done? Like, how do I know it's really done? Well, I'm going to do some stitching on here, maybe some looping through here. I might do a little bit more work in the center to create more emphasis. And there's a bunch of like raw paint up here that I might add some elements to. But this is really the emphasis, so I think I'm going to build up the center and then let the ends here kind of taper off in terms of material. Okay, so I'm kind of getting close to being done with this. I just have a lot more stitching and little detail work to add to it to make it look finished. Okay? Any questions? Jocelyn.
Did you add the feedback discussion now?
Of course. Of course. Any other questions concerning the demonstration or anything like that? Okay, so it's 9:09. You guys literally have like a good 50 minutes to work on your project, so you should make some progress. I need to see paintings done and 3D materials on everybody's by the end of class. All right, and I will go post that discussion board. I'm sorry?
How much time do we have?
Till 10.
So 50 minutes?
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, the feedback discussion post board is up, so if you want to go do that, feel free. Once you post, let me know either with your voice or in the chat, because I'll be working on this and going back and forth from that to this.
Ms. Greninger, I posted in the feedback discussion.
Okay, great. I'm gonna go open that up. I'm just finishing my role here real quick. Updating my role. Okay, would you like this to be private or public feedback?
Public.
Okay. Public is a lot easier for me because then we can just talk about it instead of me typing it out. It's more fun that way too. Okay, so Jocelyn, I remember yours. The sunshine and the flowers, and it's kind of dark. It's hard for me to really see texture, but I see that you added a lot of yarn and some fabric squares and some sort of like, is there a pen? Is that part of it?
The pen was I accidentally left it there because I accidentally burned my hand on the glue gun, and so when I went to grab it, it got glued down.
Oh no. Oh, that's okay. Well, it's a really good start. Jocelyn, I think there's a lot of really interest. I love the yarn on the butterflies, the way you've kind of looped it around and created some curves there. And I really like the details of your little diamonds. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the patches of fabric, kind of sort of randomly placed. What was your thinking about those?
I kind of liked it because I like stuffed animals, and so I kind of. Well, it was from my favorite character from a video game, and it has like patches on it.
Okay.
So I put it like that.
Gotcha. Okay, so you want to try to make some connections here. So you created a very symmetrical pattern, right? It's the same on both sides, except for those patches. So now all of a sudden you're playing around with asymmetry, which is not the same on both sides, but still kind of balanced. So I want you to take that even further. What else do you have in that bag I gave you? Do you have any other materials besides yarn and feathers?
I have a paper strip and some mesh.
Okay. Do you think you could figure out a way to work those in as well? There's a
Yeah.
lot of empty space. I'm really hoping that you can, fill up. Oops, you can see my screen. Fill up your whole thing full. And I know yours is big because you use giant cardboard, but I just want to see more mixed media materials incorporated into your design and some detail work like some stitching.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a really good start. Make some decisions about that symmetry. Decide if you're going to go asymmetrical or symmetrical, because right now you're kind of in between. Looks good.
Miss Granger.
Yeah.
So for my art piece, one side I put like mesh on it, and then for the other side, I was going to put mesh, but I ran out of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have any more mesh. So what can I do? So like, I put mesh on the feathers, like here.
Uh-huh.
But I don't have mesh for here, like this top part.
Oh, I don't know. Can you walk around the house and look for something that might be similar to mesh, or do you know how to crochet, or can you create your own mesh somehow using strips of something?
Something I can do, like is there something else I can do that like not just like mesh? Is there, like, can I put something else on it?
You can do whatever you want. If you have an idea, I would go for it. Like the fact that I put mesh on mine, you don't have to put mesh on yours, because some of you don't even have mesh.
I just like to have it look on mine. And like, so can I put these streamers on it?
Mm-hmm.
Will it look good?
I don't know. I think you should just kind of hold it up and sort of decide for yourself if you think it looks good. You don't have to glue it down until you've sort of decided that you like the way it looks. Actually, I'm going to keep it on my